Morning and a very warm welcome. This is Gail from Think Skills. Welcome onto this video recording for Facilitation Done Right. Today I'm absolutely delighted to have Kirsty Lewis from the School of Facilitation with me. We're going to take a different step from the other presenters we had so far. We're quite already involved in digital. Kirsty is very proud to say that she's coming from a face-to-face environment. She loves facilitating face-to-face in the classroom, but like all of us, she has to adapt to the digital world, and she's going to share her experience with us. Good morning, Kirsty. How are you today?
Morning. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. It's a pleasure to have you. I really admire what you do with the School of Facilitation. And I'm delighted you're taking the time to be with us at Facilitation Done Right. So, Kirsty, so I understand it's been about 10 years that you are, is it running the School of Facilitation? It's about 10 years
No,
now.
it's 10 years since I left the world of corporate, where I was in, I guess you'd call it L&D in this day and age. And School of Facilitation is 3 years old.
Oh. Since you left L&D, what changes have you seen in the world of facilitation? What do you think stopped working or is now done, wasn't done before? Can you give us a little bit an idea of the landscape of facilitation today?
But this is purely my perspective, so this isn't based on science or research. When I first left corporate, it was 2008. And at that point in time, companies were very much entrenched in face-to-face learning, workshops. Workshops would be anything between, 1 to 4 to 5 days. That wasn't unusual to be out of the office that much. I think I also noticed that there was less of the blended learning approach, as we would call it today, or the 70-20-10. I think some companies did it, but they just didn't label it as such. There was less, we definitely all know there was less use of technology, and it was more about the face-to-face interactions. What I've noticed in the time that I've been working for myself is that steady creep of the use of technology and how that has changed the landscape of how we look at learning and development. And all of you out there listening to this will know classics that, there's time pressures now, geographical pressures, companies are cutting their expenses, and therefore technology has started to play the role in learning, in that we can do webinars like you and I are, we can create video, we can create bite-sized learning. I think there's been definitely a rise in the bite-sized learning, or you might hear people use the term micro-learning. A company in the UK, Mind Gym, do that pretty well. They run sessions between an hour and 2 hours. So they would go into a corporate and give you manageable chunks to learn. So I've noticed that happening. I think I've also seen, definitely within my peer group, so other facilitators and trainers, when you work for yourself, you take on your own learning, but I've started to see that extend into corporates, that people are now demanding their own learning, and they're not waiting for companies to come to them and say, right, you have to go on these courses, or you have to be skilled in these capabilities. So I think people are looking for their own spaces and places to go and learn. And so therefore I've seen a rise in different formats that have lent themselves to people doing their own self-learning.
Yes, that's a lot of changes, and thank you. That's a very in-depth cover of all the changes. How do you think that affected the jobs of facilitators, Kirsty?
So I think we have to adapt through the times. We'd be naive to stay entrenched in how we've always done things. That for me has meant when I'm designing solutions for my clients, it's not just offering up a workshop anymore. And I've never bought into that, because you need the line managers to get involved. You need the businesses to be supporting the learners to go through that learning journey. And it's looking at what needs to happen before a workshop or a learning intervention, and what can happen afterwards. So I think now the solutions I offer up are a blend of face-to-face. They're a blend of webinars. They're a blend of like resources that I give people as well, so that they can go away and carry on and do their self-learning. And we have check-in points through the course of their learning journey, either on the telephone, face-to-face, or using something like this on a webinar.
And Kirsty, do you think it's coming from so these changes, is it driven by the corporate, by the business within the corporate, by the L&D within the corporate, or is it driven by outside people like you, people coming, contractors coming to provide the training? So how do you find these changes being driven to?
Good question. I think it's probably a blend of both. I think the corporates drive it by their needs to be cost efficient and save time. I think there's the external piece for the corporates where technology is improving so much. I mean, maybe we can all remember a time when we have tried to use the webinar technology or telecons, and there was like 6-7 years ago, it was just dreadful and no one would use it because it was just the most painful experience. But now that we can use great systems like we're on now, which is Adobe, and it works, it's fast, the pace, it makes sense to work like this. So it is so much easier. So I think you get the technology piece improving, so that makes it easier for us to use. I think you get the internal pressures of businesses looking for different ways of working and solutions. And then I think just general life has just changed the way we do things. I remember being given a BlackBerry back in 2006 and a colleague saying to me, make sure you turn that off every time you leave the office and don't turn it back on until you come in the next day. And it was really good advice because he said otherwise people, because I had a global role, he said people will be contacting you all night and day. 10 years on, that's norm. That is how we are. With the advent of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, we are connected 24/7. So I think that's also driven how learners want to learn. So no longer do I wait for a friend to give me a recommendation of a book to read or tell me about this amazing person who's based in America or Australia. I've probably found them already. So I think technology, just the expansion of technology has probably driven a lot of what we have to then do as facilitators. I think also then there's the research in learning and development, which is showing us how learners like to learn, and being able to take those learnings and bring them into our own workspaces. And I think some people in L&D, in learning and in research are the thought leaders, and they can actually bring that to us. So people just adopt that and bring it to life.
Thank you very much, Kirsty, for answering all those questions. So in the past 10 years, just to recap, we've seen a rise of blended learning. The technology has changed, the technology we use, but the technology that was pre-existing has improved, and also obviously the speed of the internet has helped virtual training to take place, and quite globally, because even part of the world that's quite remote can access those technology now in decent fashion without being kicked out permanently. But beyond just using the virtual classroom, the rise of communities have allowed for blended learnings. And in our next short videos, which we are inspired by the micro-learning technology, we are going to look at what it means for trainers in terms of skills and competences. So thank you very much, Kirsty, for your time, and we're looking forward to the next videos we're having with you. Thanks, Kirsty.
Thank you.